I wanted to talk about it before we got into the rest of it because it's just shorter. This is the Texas. There's a school administrator in Southlake, Texas, advising teachers about what information they should have in class because Texas just passed a thing where if you have, say, a topic in a book, you have to provide an opposing view on such a thing. Maybe you've seen this go around. This is interesting. This is fascinating. A Carroll staff member secretly recorded Petty's comments and shared the audio with NBC News. The following has been edited for length. Here you go.
We are in the middle of a political mess. And you are in the middle of a political mess. And so we just have to do the best that we can. And so we're going to go and you're going to do what you do best, and that's to teach kids.
So as a person who taught kids for a while, not a long time, but a little bit, you do get told kind of the way, or not the way, I guess, that you get told sort of the curriculum, you know what I mean? And the school board agrees on that. And then, of course, the state school board, there's a whole bunch of bureaucracy that goes in the way. But nonetheless, you do have a curriculum, and you do have to follow it to some extent. However, I'm going to throw this out there. Teachers, they're who they are, right? They're not robots that regurgitate facts. You teach. It's what you're for. Some people are good at it. Some people are bad at it. You know the good and bad teachers you had. Probably more bad than good. You just got to have a knack for communication and understand why something ought to be interesting to somebody, which is why I really like teaching history. It was really cool. I got to teach luckily I didn't teach this today because it would be a much more controversial. But I was teaching the French Revolution, and if you know anything about the French Revolution, you know that there's a bit of classism to be talked about. And so that was a fascinating thing for me to teach. It was really, really nice. I got to teach that, and I got to teach some American government and early American history stuff in class to students. I didn't get much else. That's a spicy topic. What is actual leftist ideology? I mean, I would say the leftist ideology isn't consistent, but I would say that there are a couple consistencies with it. Typically, understanding the ills of capitalism and the alternatives to that, and then understanding, probably number two, would be understanding our social ills and how to combat those. Those would probably be two things, and that would, social ills would be like, homophobia, racism, transphobia, stuff like that. That'd be pretty much the whole thing. Other than that, you can, you have different relations, but those are probably broadly that's going to cover most leftists. Anyway, we'll keep going.
I think we're all just really terrified.
I think you are terrified, and I wish I could take that away. I do. I can't do that. You are professionals. We hired you as professionals. We trust you with our children. So if you think the book is okay, then let's go with it. And whatever happens, we will fight it together. We will.
There's a lot of districts that are in the exact same spot we're in. And no one knows how to navigate these waters. I mean, no one.
So what happened here is Texas passed their shitty conservative bill, and teachers were like, well, if we have to teach an opposing view, we're going to need different books. We're going to need more funding for more books to give an opposite opinion on stuff, because now our curriculum is literally just slapped in the face with, we can't just tell what's true. We also have to give like opinion pieces on stuff, which is not a good thing to do. Particularly Democratic Socialists. I mean, they are firing people for these things, but it's whatever. I don't remember, but apparently I had a teacher that told me we shouldn't have been in Vietnam. I guess told my grandpa and he lost his shit. Well, that's because your grandpa is a fucking weenie. Your grandpa is a douchebag that didn't understand the Vietnam War at all. And we shouldn't have been in the Vietnam War. So, yeah, the teacher was 100% right. Aren't there teachers' unions? Yeah. The teachers' union is actually one of the strongest unions. The problem is you're having when you put stuff like this in the way, the teachers' unions can't do a ton. Anyway, this is about to get to the meaty part. Here it comes. Teachers complained that they still didn't understand the new book guidelines, so Petty offered an example. Here we go.
As you go through, just try to remember the concepts of 3979 and make sure that if you have a book on the Holocaust, that you have one that has other.
How do you oppose the Holocaust?
Believe me, that's come up.
So number the stars.
No.
So all the teachers, literally all the teachers there, which is a very good sign, goes, what's the alternative view on the Holocaust? Actually, it was a good thing? Okay, do we have a single conservative in chat? Do we have a single conservative in chat? Like one of you. That'd be ideal. Hey, any conservatives in chat want to advocate for teaching the Holocaust was good actually in school? Just any of you? Is that a thing? Like what? Love that she picked the worst example possible. I know, right? I used to be a conservative. Do I count? No. Like, it's just so silly. It's really dumb. What's Number the Stars? Number the Star. What is that? Work of historical fiction by American author Lois Lowry about the escape of a Jewish family, the Rosens, from Copenhagen. Wait. Huh. So if we read Number the Stars, what's the alternative to that? Mein Kampf. In a statement, a Carroll spokeswoman said that Petty's example about the Holocaust reflects the district's attempt to comply with a new state law that requires teachers to present multiple perspectives when discussing widely debated and currently controversial issues. Is the Holocaust currently controversial, or are there like 3% of all human people that are like, it's fake? You know what I mean? Like Night by Eli Wiesel. I actually have the Eli Wiesel trilogy. Night, Dawn, and Day, or something. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the end of that. I just wanted to talk about the just education thing. Like, genuinely, like, conservatives, what is your deal? What's your deal? Like, why do you have to... I don't understand what the problem is here. Like, what are you mad about in the education system that's not doing it for you? What do you want? Do you want people to learn facts about things or opinions about things? Do you want them to just learn Fox News stuff? Like, I thought we didn't want to indoctrinate the kids, or... Because when we teach, we ask questions, and like you can learn that, like, for instance, America's especially the South, well, clearly, obviously the South, but the whole of America benefited from the economics behind free labor that slavery provided. Why can't, that's a fact. That is a fact. There's no political spin you can put on that to say that America did not benefit greatly economically from the slave trade. It's not debatable. There's nothing special about the Holocaust? What do you mean there's nothing special about the Holocaust? It's pretty special. Dear conservatives, homeschool your crotch goblins. Are you just saying it's not special because other people have been genocided? But that's not why the Holocaust is particularly historically interesting. And what you're saying is actually like just historically illiterate if you think that the Holocaust isn't particularly interesting or doesn't offer some sort of different special, I guess, to use the word special. Just a genocide, there have been many. See, it's because you're historically illiterate why that's not interesting to you. That's fascinating. You're part of the problem. You're absolutely part of the problem. It's just a genocide. There have been many. There have not been as many genocides like the Holocaust. Name another genocide that was like the Holocaust, and you will be wrong. Like you could say Rwanda. You could say the American one of Native Americans. You could say. I mean, they're just not the same. It's just a genocide. It isn't just a genocide. It isn't just a genocide. It's because that's the dumbest take ever. Like, why sit here and pretend with this air of superiority about the take, right? Like, I'll tell you what makes the Holocaust special, specifically. But like, it's so weird to come from a point of ignorance and to just assert, there's nothing special about this Holocaust. I mean, it's quite literally the most special genocide, the most documented and most formative, like, event in modern human history. Like, and it's not just because it's just a genocide. There's a reason we talk about the Holocaust as opposed to any of the other genocides that might have occurred in the way that we talk about it. And it's interesting that out of that ignorance you can make such a weird assertion. What is genocide relativism? I don't like this. There's such like a faux intellectualism behind how you're saying stuff. Like, can you just understand that you're not smart about, like, you're not intelligent about this? You don't have some sort of like you don't have some sort of like expertise in this field. It's just so weird. So I want you to tell me what you think is different between the Holocaust and any other genocide. Can you identify a difference between that and another one? Like, it's really interesting that you're just like, we're going to assert this. It's just fascinating. You can't explain what makes it special. I can and I will. I want to see if you can identify a difference between the Holocaust and any other genocide. Can you? Because if you thought about it for 3 seconds, I feel like most people, if you know anything about it, would understand it better. It's just so weird. There are a few differences. Cool. Name them. Name some of the differences. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you don't know what you're talking about. You are asserting, you are feigning. The targeted group was the Jews. Do you think that matters specifically why the Holocaust was different? Because it doesn't. It could have been any group. And it wasn't just the group. It wasn't just Jews. But sure. That's definitely one difference, but it's not like the difference. because you don't know about it. You know what I'm saying? Fairly recent Western. No. There's lots of... There have been Western genocides. Specifically, the Native American one is a great example of that. You could say the conquistadors in the Spanish also doing it. You could say the French with the Canadian. All of that is genocide that has happened in the West. Do you see what I'm saying? You're ignorant about this. You don't know stuff. You haven't thought about this, so you can just dismiss it and feign some sort of, like, it's like Dunning-Kruger. You just literally, you sit there and you go, like, I'm above it all. I'm above it all. This is not interesting to me. It's white people that got killed. It wasn't just white people. And certainly Jewish people were not considered white, like the way. I think that matters as to why the Holocaust is so central to our culture. No, you don't. No, you don't. You have no opinions on why the Holocaust is central to our culture. If you did, you would give me a good example of why the Holocaust is so specifically different than any of the other genocides that have ever happened in the world. You know what I mean? Like, you would be able to put this into words, but you can't because you don't know about it. Native American genocides were not as recent and they were not carried out in the same fashion. Okay? But there were genocides in Rwanda. There was genocides all over the place. Like, the fact that you don't consider the current genocide of the native populations of the Americas and South America, like, that you don't consider that current is interesting to me. Because it is current. It still happens. They are in reservations. Huh. Interesting. That's not genocide. Interesting. The residential schools in 1996 are not an example of genocide. I believe they are an example of a continued systemic genocidal act. Because, again, you don't have the historical understanding of any of this. So, again, it's just you not understanding things, and then because you don't understand them, because you are ignorant of these things, you take on an air of confidence that you have not earned or deserved, like, and then you just say, oh, it's just like any other genocide. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Okay, you're changing the topic to arguing that there's not a current genocide of Native Americans in the West. Sure. But why you have yet to like interact with the question. There's a bunch of reasons that the Holocaust is vastly different. Number one, the number one thing, Gray Fox, thanks for the prime, is the vast systemic sort of apparatus of the Reich and the way that it conducted it. It was targeted. It wasn't just like putting out bounties and having people, like in America, it wasn't just putting people and saying, like, here's an open fucking game as we move west towards Western expansion. The territories it wasn't a territorial genocide. It wasn't. It was a cultural genocide. This is specifically different than most other genocides that I can even think of off the top of my head. Most genocides are territorial. Most. This is not that. This is specifically a culture war type genocide. I don't like this part about how they introduce their culture, is what it's about. It is conservatives. It is fascism, right? Specifically targeting their government officials to hunt down these individuals and then take them, imprison them, and let them die in camps. That is a specifically different situation. It's not a cultural beef in the way that, like, the Rwandan genocide is. Right? It's not the same as that. That's more of like, religious territorial thing. This is, again, a more modern version of it. The mechanization, the automation, the like factory type setting of the Holocaust also is vastly different. The trains and the factories and the labor camps and all of those things. Those are specifically different to other genocides. The industrialization of genocide, which made it incredibly effective. I mean, it was basically like a Ford factory of genocide. There was a path to this. Now, it eventually became more territorial in the way that wars are, but they weren't like taking random Polish families, for instance, that weren't Jewish, and then putting them into that system. Once they gained that territory, or even while they were gaining that territory, it was specifically still just about Jewish people, and then some other subgroups, homosexuals and stuff, the infirm, people with mental health problems, stuff like that, the deformed, then those people got wrapped up to it. But they weren't taking those people so that they could have their land. They weren't taking those people so they could have a resource. They weren't taking those people for anything other than getting rid of them. That's specifically different. That's why the Holocaust is so incredibly vile, is because you can justify, if you're a bad person, you can vehemently justify for, say, the Western expansion throughout the U.S. and the displacement and genocide of Native peoples. You could, and they did, like Manifest Destiny. Andrew Jackson is a great example of someone who absolutely vehemently described like might makes right, basically, in this case. But this is not what is happening in Germany and in the Reich around the Holocaust. This isn't that. There was no alternative motive. It was quite literally just cultural motivation. This is why it's so different. And this is why you can't just hand wave and say, oh, the Holocaust is just one of a handful of genocides, which, I mean, I can't imagine anybody saying except for that one dum-dum. But the fact that you would even deign to say something so stupid, and then, when asked a question, not be able to even get to that, not even to be able to identify that, is a problem with you. Now, it would be different if you were just like, I just don't know about it. Why is it different from a genocide? That's fine. But to assert it with that personality, that kind of assertion is the problem right now with what politics in the world is right now. You have a genuine gap in knowledge, and yet you decide to speak on it wholeheartedly with your full chest in an authoritative way, and not asking questions or not saying, I think it might not be that different. No, saying it definitely is not different than anything else. Like, it's just so irresponsible, and I can't imagine having that personality. I just can't. It doesn't make any fucking sense at all. To just like posture in the face of your ignorance, when you could just be honest and be like, I don't know about this. Because that's okay. It is okay to not know about shit. It is not okay to pretend you do and then have wild takes on this stuff. Anyone you've ever told that before might come away believing that and then not understand the context of the Holocaust and then not see the signs towards a Holocaust. Another one. This is why history is important, or not see even fascism or whatever. Like, whether it comes from the right or the left, the authoritarian destruction of another human group of people, not good. Which is why we don't like tankies. Well, really extreme tankies. Not even some tankies aren't even that bad, but like, whew, like re-education camps for capitalists. Like, what the fuck are you talking? No. It's fucking wild. This is the type of thing that happens. You can't be so fucking ignorant anymore. I don't put up with ignorance. So, there you go. That's what happens.